You live like you're always one step behind. You rush through breakfast while checking your phone. You rush through work, waiting for the day to end. You rush through weekends, try to fit in enough rest to survive another week of rushing. You've turned your entire life into a waiting room, and you keep telling yourself that once you get through this busy period, you'll finally slow down. But that period never ends, because you were never taught how to actually be slow. You were only taught how to be efficient. Japan figured this out centuries before slow living became a hashtag, not as a trend, not as a lifestyle aesthetic with beige linen and ceramic mugs, but as a deep practical philosophy for how to actually experience your own life instead of rushing past it. And once you understand it, you realize you've been missing something so basic that no productivity app or morning routine was ever going to fix it. It starts with a word you probably heard but never really understood: wabi-sabi. You've seen it used to describe a chipped teacup or a rustic wooden table, like it's just an interior design style. But wabi-sabi is actually a complete way of relating to time. It's the acceptance that nothing is finished, nothing is perfect, and nothing lasts, and that this is exactly what makes something worth paying attention to. A cherry blossom is beautiful precisely because it falls apart within days. If it lasted forever, you'd stop noticing it. Wabi-sabi asks you to stop chasing permanence and perfection, because that chase is a thing making you feel like you're always behind. You're not behind. You're just human, in a moment that was never meant to be perfect or permanent in the first place. You resist this idea because you've been trained to believe that good things last and imperfect things need fixing. So you rush to fix your body, your career, your relationships, your home, treating your entire life like an unfinished renovation project. Wabi-sabi tells you the cracks are not a problem to solve. The cracks are where the light gets in, and more importantly, the cracks are where you slow down enough to actually look. Then there's mono no aware, which roughly means a gentle sadness of things passing. This isn't depression. It's the quiet ache you feel watching a sunset, or hugging someone you know you won't see for a long time, or looking at old photos of yourself as a child. That ache is not something to avoid. In Japanese thought, that ache is actually where meaning lives. You feel it most intensely with things that are temporary, and almost everything worth noticing is temporary. Your morning coffee, this exact conversation, this exact version of your life right now, none of it is staying. Mono no aware asks you to feel that passing instead of numbing yourself to avoid it. And strangely, once you let yourself feel it, you stop rushing so hard to escape the present moment, because you realize the present moment is the only place any of this ever actually happens. You spend so much energy trying to avoid endings that you never fully arrive at beginnings. You're already thinking about how this vacation will end while you're still on it. You're already grieving a relationship before it's even in trouble. You do this because slowness feels dangerous to you. If you slow down enough to feel something fully, you might feel how fragile it all is. But the Japanese tradition says that fragility is not a flaw in life. It's the entire texture of it. Now think about the tea ceremony. Chatto, the way of tea. To an outsider, it looks absurdly slow. Someone spends 15 minutes preparing a single cup of tea with exact movements, exact silence, exact attention. You'd probably get impatient watching it. But that's exactly the point. The tea ceremony isn't really about tea. It's a structured practice in doing one thing at a time, completely, without your mind sprinting ahead to the next task. Every gesture, folding the cloth, warming the bowl, whisking the tea, is done with total presence, because the ceremony assumes something you've forgotten. That rushing through an action means you were never actually there for it. You do dozens of things a day without ever fully being present for any of them. You eat while scrolling. You listen while planning your reply. You walk while thinking about somewhere else. The tea ceremony is a quiet rebellion against exactly this. It insists that one full, unhurried action is worth more than 10 distracted ones. And you don't need a tea room to practice this. You need to pick one ordinary task today, making coffee, washing dishes, tie your shoes, and do it as if it's the only thing that exists in that moment. That's the whole practice. Nobody's watching. Nobody's grading you. You're simply choosing to actually be where you are. There's also a concept called ichigo ichie, which means one time, one meeting. It comes from the same tea tradition, and it means that this exact moment, with these exact people, in this exact configuration, will never happen again. Even if you see the same person tomorrow, tomorrow is a different moment entirely. You are different. They are different. Everything around you has shifted slightly. This idea sounds simple, but it changes how you show up. If you actually believe this conversation would never repeat itself in quite this way, would you still be checking your phone during it? Would you still be half listening while thinking about what you're doing later? Ichigo ichie isn't asking you to be sentimental. It's asking you to stop assuming you'll get infinite replays of your own life. You treat your days like drafts, assuming you'll get a cleaner version later. You'll really connect with people once things calm down. You'll really enjoy your life once you hit some milestone. But there's no cleaner draft coming. This version, right now, imperfect and unfinished, is the only one you actually get to live. Then there's ma, a concept that's hard to translate, but incredibly important. Ma is the meaningful pause, the empty space between things, the silence between notes and music, the gap between words and sentence, the blank space in a painting. In the West, empty space usually feels like something's missing, something you need to fill. In Japanese aesthetics, that empty space is not absence. It's the thing that gives everything else its shape. Without the pause, the notes are just noise. Without the gap, the words blur into meaningless sound. You treat silence like a problem. You fill every gap in conversation, every quiet moment in your day, every bit of unstructured time, because stillness makes you uncomfortable. But Ma tells you that the pause is not empty. The pause is where meaning actually forms. If you never allow any gap in your day, you never give yourself room to notice anything, because noticing requires space. This is why a slow walk with no destination can restore you more than another hour of scrolling. The walk has Ma built into it. The scrolling has none. There's a similar idea called shibumi, an understated, quiet kind of beauty. It's the opposite of flashy or loud. It's a simple wooden bowl instead of an ornate golden one. It's a calm, restrained conversation instead of performance. Shibumi teaches you that the most powerful things are often the quietest ones. You've been taught that impressive means big, loud, fast, impressive on paper. Shibumi tells you that the truly rich version of a life is usually plain on the surface and deep underneath, and you only notice that depth if you're moving slowly enough to look closely. All of this points to the same underlying secret. Slowness in Japanese philosophy isn't about doing less out of laziness. It's about doing whatever you're doing with your full attention, because attention is what actually creates meaning. Speed doesn't just cost you time. It costs you your ability to notice that you're alive while you're living. You can rush through a beautiful moment and never register that it happened. You can slow down inside a plain, ordinary moment and feel like you touched something real. You don't need to move to a quiet mountain town or give up your job to live this way. You need to change how you inhabit the moments you already have. Drink your next cup of coffee without your phone and actually taste it. Have one conversation today where you put nothing else in your hands and just listen. Walk somewhere without a destination and let the empty space of that walk exist without rushing to fill it with a podcast or a call. Notice one small imperfect thing today, a chipped mug, a wrinkle, a tired face, and let it be beautiful instead of something to fix. This is the actual Japanese secret to living slowly. It was never about doing everything at half speed. It was about giving your full presence to whatever you're already doing, trusting that the ordinary, unfinished, temporary nature of your life isn't the flaw you've been trying to escape. It's the entire point.